Just a quick disclaimer, this will be a longer video, so make sure you guys grab your snacks, breakfast, coffee, champagne. T-Mobile was popping champagne at 9 a.m. Eastern during the earnings call. Drink responsibly, of course, but whatever it is, protein shake, breakfast, coffee, I got my coffee right here. This will be a longer video, so let's get right into this video. The article comes to you guys from Seeking Alpha. I will leave a link to it in the description so you guys could check it out. So first, I wanted to spend a quick moment. During the earnings, Mike Sievert got his proper goodbyes. So this will be his last earnings call that we'll see of him. He is now in a advisory role. But for those of you who have been following the industry, who have been on the channel for a long time, that just pretty much means he's going to fade off into the sunset. He'll still be available for Srini for advice and phone calls and maybe some contacts and emails and stuff like that. But outside of that, Mike Sievert is pretty much headed into a retirement. So Srini is now taking over, and the next quarterly earnings, which is Q4, will be entirely led by Srini Gopalan, the new CEO of T-Mobile. So a few things, I want to break this down as smooth as possible. A few things that we learned today during the earnings call. Something very unusual and different, but it'll be good for us. So during the fourth quarter earnings, usually we get guidance for the next year. So in this case, during the fourth quarter earnings, which usually takes place in January, we would get guidance for 2026. This year, or this go around, apparently, per Srini, we're going to get guidance for 2026 and 2027. So that's 2 years worth of guidance. Might be information overload, but we're going to get that at the fourth quarter earnings. What does that mean? What does that tell me? Srini has a lot to say. We're going to get a glimpse of his strategy, of his investments, and where he wants to take the company. Some of his core focuses is what we're going to get at the fourth quarter earnings. So that might be a longer earnings call as well. I look forward to it. And I hope you guys will join the channel on the content that is made during the fourth quarter earnings. It's going to be probably an even longer video for that earnings call. So a few things that I also want to discuss and talk about and bring to the spotlight. I think there's a bit of an overreaction on T-Mobile's Capex increase that's highlighted right here in this title. T-Mobile continues to see strong subscriber momentum, but Capex increase weighs on shares. So I want to talk about that and kind of put that in the spotlight before we get deeper into the video. For the analysts that do watch my video, I have some of them message me. They do watch my content. I think this is completely overblown. And I want to just remind everybody, T-Mobile told us this at the original Capital Markets Day in 2021. They reconfirmed it at the Capital Markets Day last year, October. The Capex guidance was always 9 to 10 billion, always. For this year, yes, they did guide to come in at the lower end of the 9 billion and 9.5 billion. The only thing T-Mobile did, they moved the 9.5 billion to the higher end of the guidance of 10 billion. They did not raise it to 11, 12, 13 billion. They didn't say, hey, we have to move this free cash flow around and guide less free cash flow because we want to raise the Capex. At this juncture, all they did is move it an additional 500 million, which I think is warranted because they have certain actions and goals they want to hit on the U.S. Cellular front, and they want to get that done in the fourth quarter. So an additional 500 million Capex, I think, is for this to say it weighs on shares, I think is completely overblown, and I think the market will settle and will rebound itself because this is completely overblown in my opinion. That's why I wanted to bring the spotlight to that, because if T-Mobile would have went up to 12, 13 billion, I would have been like, okay, now we have to break that apart. Why did they raise it that high? What other capital allocations could they have? What other priorities could they have? But they didn't do that. They just moved it 500 million up to 10 billion and kept it within the same guidance range that they've been giving for a few years now. So to me, not alarming, no problem at all. And it does shift focus to the next topic, which is US Cellular. The reason for the increase, per Peter Osvaldik, the CFO, they have some decommissioning costs coming up in the fourth quarter, and there's some additional merger related costs that'll hit the balance sheet. So they wanna continue to execute with a clear strategy, clear priorities, and they want to get stuff done quicker. So they moved the target of 3 to 4 years down to 2 years. But remember, just quickly remember, as we move into the guidance that we're going to get during the fourth quarter, 2 years worth of guidance, and the guidance for this year, T-Mobile has did a raise and beat almost every quarter this year. T-Mobile's guidance are always conservative. Keep that in mind. They always guide conservative. Some have called it under promise, over deliver. It's a strategy of T-Mobile's. They've done it for years. No change here. So any number we get in 26, 27, take it as conservative and always think, okay, T-Mobile is going to beat those numbers. That's how it should be viewed, in my opinion. And that's why I say majority of the integration will be done by the end of 2026 on US Cellular. There will still be some things that will linger into 2027, but majority of this integration shall be done by the end of 2026, in my honest opinion. Looking at how T-Mobile has operated, this is, if you compare this to the Sprint integration, this is a piece of cake. It's a lot smaller. It's just not at the same type of scale. During the Sprint merger, T-Mobile was doing like 1,000 radios a month. This is going to be a piece of cake for T-Mobile. They have the know-how at this time. They know exactly what they're looking for, and this will be, in my opinion, no different than any other guidance and targets that they have under promised and over delivered. So, but again, T-Mobile can't move too quick. There's going to be some people that want to switch to T-Mobile in that territory next week, and they're going to probably be met with some issues because it's going to take a little bit of time. I mean, T-Mobile can't flip a switch and boom, all of a sudden all the sites have T-Mobile equipment hanging on them. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but it's not going to be anything too crazy where we're going to have to wait half a decade. That's not going to be the case here, in my honest opinion. So the greenfield builds, still a key priority for T-Mobile. Keep that in mind. Capex for this quarter was up 34% for that reason. For greenfield builds, it was put into the actual prepared remarks on the press release. They spent 2.6 billion total Capex wireless. So break that down, right? Just quickly breaking that down. I think AT&T's was somewhere in the $4 billion range. But again, AT&T does owned and operated fiber. So that takes, who knows how much AT&T actually spent on wireless. Keep that in mind. It could have been $1 billion. It could have been 500 million that they put into wireless, the rest into fiber. And we all know there is a 60-40 split between fiber and wireless. Core priority today is fiber. Just putting that out there. T-Mobile spent was a 2.6 billion, and that's all pure wireless. All of that is going straight into the wireless network. The RAN, the ODAS, the you name it, that's where it's going. And I think that's how T-Mobile has been able to differentiate themselves. And I think people never really looked at that as a core breakdown, because people always questioned, right, how did T-Mobile do so much with so little? And then I always tell them, was it really so little? Like, they were core focused on wireless. They had no other real business units to invest in. With AT&T and Verizon over the years, yeah, they spent more capex, but they had to divide the pie into all these segments. They had overseas global networks. They had fiber obligations, which I now know more that those are very expensive than even I knew back then. Doing front haul and right of way and all that stuff has to be considered. So T-Mobile is pure wireless. So T-Mobile is comfortable. I'm telling you guys right now, they are very comfortable at spending 2.6 billion for the quarter. That's really, if you're just pure wireless like they are, if you really break that down, if you look at the cost of what it costs to build a cell site, 2.6 billion is a lot of money, and it's leading to a lot of expansion, backup generators at sites, and more of that to come. There's one more quarter this year where they're going to spend probably around another 2 billion. And that means more greenfield sites. For me, it means ODAS, some ODAS systems, a few of them this year for further densification. And that was also discussed during the earnings call. T-Mobile said they're going to still remain very focused and disciplined. Just because they have a stronger balance sheet today does not mean they're going to not be responsible and just blow all this money. They're not going to do that, right? So what does that mean? So T-Mobile is looking at it very closely. They said of course they saw the EchoStar and AT&T deal. They of course they had to review it to see how it would affect their business. And they said they're far more disciplined. Yes, they have the stronger balance sheet today, and that was disclosed during the Q&A. Verizon and AT&T are a bit more cash strapped today because they have a lot more debt on the balance sheet. The net debt ratio, for at least for AT&T today, doesn't look as good as it did. Right, it's now leveraged at 3.0 when they want to get to a target of 2.5. So T-Mobile better positioned. But what Srini said during the call, he said we're not going to just blow money on resale spectrum, or I think he says secondhand market, because that's very expensive. Because demand is up for spectrum, but there isn't a lot of spectrum to get right now in the pipeline. So any spectrum that's out there and you want to buy it, the seller is going to charge you more for it. It's the same with the sneaker market. If you buy a pair of retro Jordans, if you guys are familiar with the retro Jordans, if it's a very rare pair that hardly is ever released, the resale is going to be far higher, significantly higher. And that's a position that the market is in today with spectrum. And AT&T paid a dear price, a very high price, for that additional 3.45. And he acknowledged that. But he said right now they're looking at, okay, for us, is it better to buy or build? That's the core focus right now for T-Mobile. And so far, they have decided to continue to invest in densification, which is a good thing. T-Mobile, remember, I want to also point this out because this isn't even being discussed anymore anywhere. I didn't hear it during the Q&A. They still have C-band in the toolbox. They can still deploy that today. If they want, during the fourth quarter earnings, when we get guidance, they could tell us 2026, we have capital allocation available to deploy C-band across 40 million pops. They could very well do that, or 2027. However they want to break it down, they could very well tell us that and surprise us with that, because it hasn't really been deployed. It's been on a few test sites, but they've never cared to share anything meaningful around C-band. Maybe we get further transparency on that deployment. That's one thing that I pointed out to the CEO when I addressed him with the video. For those of you who saw it, he also saw the video. And there's some talks behind the scenes, but he also saw the video, and the transparency piece is very important. So hopefully we get some transparency around where the C-band deployment will be. Will that matter for the average consumer? No, they just want the phone to work. I've told you guys this plenty of times. I've oversimplified it. The average consumer don't care if the connection comes from a toilet as long as it works. I know that's oversimplifying it, but that's how they view it. So so that's where T-Mobile stands on buying versus building. That's a decision that Verizon also made during LTE. They decided they wanted to densify and not spend heavily on spectrum. So that ended up putting them in the position that they're in today. T-Mobile today, fast forward, they're in a far better spectrum position and in a far better densification position, and they are going to further densify. Now they're going to continue to use, per the earnings call, they're going to continue to use the customer focus driven coverage, the AI tool. I still truly believe 100% there is still a human element to that. Even because the AI may tell you, hey, you need some towers here, and the human element will come in, the engineer, and say, we'll be fine with ODAS. There's still going to be a final decision and a final sign off, what gets invested, what gets deployed. So there's still a human element to that. So don't get that misunderstood. So to close out the video, to not make it too long. So T-Mobile has a core focus. They are clearly executing as best as ever, right? 1 million postpaid nets for the quarter is insane. 2.2 million total overall. That included everything. Connected tablets, watches, first responders, business, you name it. I mean, T-Mobile is growing at volumes unlike we've ever seen them grow at before. I mean, I think they talked about best third quarter in over a decade. So they haven't been able to reach this type of growth since the Un-carrier days have started very early on. Is that necessarily concerning? For some, it is concerning. For others, they're saying it's okay because they can see the amount of capacity that still needs to be filled. The churn was much better too. They had the lowest churn in the industry at 0.89, which T-Mobile said would happen, and they're going to strive towards that goal. I just never thought it would be, because AT&T and Verizon are continuing to increase their churns, would cause T-Mobile to be a lower churn, but that seems to be happening. So one thing that I want to say, and maybe if someone at T-Mobile is listening, one thing I want to say: when you back people into a corner, there's always concern and a bit of fear what they might do. And I think that's the position that we're in today. I think right now, T-Mobile has backed AT&T and Verizon so far into a corner that they're going to have to act out of character. And I think you guys have seen that in real life. When you bully somebody, when you push somebody to their limits, they tend to have to act out of character. They might respond in a violent way. They might fight, right? In this case, we're talking about business. So we're not talking about anything violent. But AT&T and Verizon are going to have to respond to the market. And each of them have their own issues, right? AT&T is dealing with higher churn. Verizon's Q3 completely blew up the whole business, apparently. I mean, they had to fire the CEO, bring in a new CEO. So they had to delay the earnings call, which I've never seen before. So I think Verizon is going to have the worst third quarter we've probably seen since the Can You Hear Me Now days, when they had the calling issues, CDMA or whatever it was. So when you create that type of environment, and T-Mobile likes the jump balls. That's the analogy that Srini uses. He wants the jump ball, meaning the switchers, because T-Mobile's so competitive, they don't mind any environment. They told us high switching, low switching, they will come out ahead. But pushing AT&T and Verizon into a corner so far, they're only going to take it to a certain extent. So I fully expect 2026, AT&T and Verizon will equally respond to the market pressure that they're getting from T-Mobile. It's clear as day now. This morning, AT&T put out ads specifically targeting T-Mobile. Verizon had the highest churn by far in the industry, which we will see next week. And they are going to apply pressure. So what's probably going to happen, depending on how aggressive they get, they're going to want to fight back against T-Mobile, but they're going to indirectly affect each other's business too. So whatever AT&T will release in 2026, super competitive, it's going to affect Verizon as well. While they're really just trying to compete back against T-Mobile, they're also going to be affecting Verizon. And same with Verizon. If Verizon wants to take T-Mobile head on, is what we've seen in some commentary recently, and they drop new deals and new price points, that could very well indirectly also affect AT&T. So each of them are ganging up against T-Mobile while simultaneously affecting their own businesses. So keep that in mind as we head through 2026. We're getting ready to face very interesting times. It's going to be a war, so to speak, lack for a better word, in the industry. Is it a pricing war, race to the bottom? I'll leave that for you guys to figure out in the comment section down below. But it's coming. It's definitely coming. Verizon can't keep taking churn above 1%. They can't sit still and allow the numbers to be what they are today, or what they will be once they're released. And AT&T, I'm telling you guys right now, I heard the internal town hall yesterday post earnings. They're not happy with 0.92% churn. Stanky is furious. He's not happy about it. So they're not gonna sit still. And you saw that this morning. If you saw the ads that AT&T dropped, they're not happy. So just wanted to talk about that a little here in this video. I know it's a longer video, but that's where we stand today. A powerful T-Mobile that has changed just about everything in its business model, right? The Un-carrier ethos, as they call it, it's really not there. They've brought back taxes. They have higher price points, and they still grow at the same numbers, almost identical to a quarter 10 years ago, where they were the cheapest by far, had the best deals, had insane value baked into the plans at that time. If you binge on, I mean, they were really innovating and had a difference-making strategy, and they're growing today at the same clip when their pricing and everything is almost the same as the competitors, in some cases worse. So let that sink in as I close out the video. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.